have today, as I said, session 2, rapid needs assessment and water safety. And we do want to make sure that we are again acknowledging all of this help and support from UNC and the Carolina Global Breastfeeding Institute. They have done a ton to help us with designing some of this content, and understand that some of the content we are sharing is actually copyrighted by CGBI and would have to be used with permission. So I hope it goes without saying, please don't use anything in these presentations without permission, other than for an actual emergency response. We want to express our appreciation to the Marcia Brady Tucker Foundation and the grant funding that they provided that has made this presentation possible. Without them, this would not be happening at all. So thank you so much to Marcia Brady Tucker Foundation. We also have a ton of support from breastfeeding family-friendly communities, which we'll talk about a little bit more at the end. Confident Pregnancy and the Birthstone Center for Appalachian Perinatal Resilience. Hopefully you all have the list of sessions and dates. We're just 2 sessions into the series. So getting started, I'm going to hand this over to Norma real quick. Just before I do that, today's trainers are the same as what we had in session 1. That's the last time this is going to happen. We do have a series of presenters. Most of the sessions are going to have different people. And so I'm going to be showing up each session kind of as a bit of an MC to help with the homework and getting the presenters, introduced. And most of the rest of the time, we're going to be bringing in experts, other experts from our SAFE team, other experts from additional organizations. And so with that, Norma, let me allow you to introduce yourself.
Well, I won't take too long. I'm Norma Escobar. I am a lactation consultant in Wilmington on the coast of North Carolina in the United States. I've got some experience with several types of disasters, living through things like in Mexico City, earthquakes and that kind of thing, because that's where I'm from, as well as living on the coast now through hurricanes. And then I responded to Hurricane Helene, and I was on the ground for about 8 weeks. So Melinda, What else? Who else do we want?
I guess I'll give myself a little more introduction. I'm Melinda Delisle. I'm a clinical nutritionist, childbirth educator, or at least former childbirth educator, and have quite a business background as well. I also responded to Hurricane Helene. I don't have extensive experience prior to that, but served as the boots on the ground coordinator for the better part of 4 months. So I was that for the majority of it. Brought in my systems understanding and business background to be able to really work with that. All right, so let's also introduce our digital support team. Ash, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah, I'm Ashley and I'm from North Texas. I'm a speech language pathologist and an international board certified lactation consultant. And I am currently a part of the SAFE team. I worked 3 weeks boots on the ground in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. And then I remained digital support when I came back home to Texas each time.
Great. Thank you so much, Ash. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Fan. I am a speech language pathologist and certified lactation counselor. I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina. Currently live near Chapel Hill, about 3 hours east of Asheville. And so I joined the SAFE team right at the very beginning, within like a week of Hurricane Helene. Primarily served as digital support, but also went up to the mountains and served on the ground as well.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So, a bit of a disclaimer. This and other presentations we give will show images of bottles, teats, bottle brushes, and commercial milk formula. This is because of the content and risk of use, not as a promotion of these products. People use them. We have to talk about how to help people in mitigating some of the risk of using those products. The SAFE team and our parent organization, Breastfeeding Family Communities, is fully supportive of the WHO Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. All right, so the most common disasters your community faces. Most people talked about climate-related challenges, some geophysical disasters, some man-made. A bunch of people talked about health disasters. Really, honestly, any of us could experience any of those, though it is good to know what are the most likely disasters that your community is going to face. As we continue through this series, what we want is for you to start thinking about what's the reality in your community? What's the highest risk for your community? And start really thinking about how this would apply in those situations. Sometimes we'll talk about that. Sometimes you're going to need to have those extra thoughts and application yourself. So we're going to start with getting people into breakouts, having a small discussion about what you found with your homework. This is going to be a few minutes long. We're going to try to aim for breakout rooms of 3 people. You might be in a room that only has 2. That's okay. You can give a quick introduction. Try to keep it to a single sentence. What did you learn about your community? Who or what is in charge of emergency preparedness? Who's responsible for families with kids under 3? In your current role, what is a concrete step you can take to support safe infant and young child feeding in your community? We did get a lot of these reports through the form. Thank you so much if you did that. This is so you can have this as a discussion and hear a little bit from what everybody else is finding in their communities as well. Our digital coordinators are putting this information in the chat. Once you've gone into the breakout room, you should still have access to this in your chat window, so you will be able to see the instructions.
We just introduced you all to the rapid needs assessment tool last session that we had. We also had some homework for you on that. That homework included the CDC rapid needs assessment tool and the simplified rapid needs assessment tool that our team came up with, because we realized really quick that the CDC tool, while absolutely fantastic and very robust, ended up not being quite as practical when you have 2 minutes for interaction with families. So that is something that we we're wanting to make sure that we kind of passed along to you. This is all about counseling skills, basically, and many of you have training in counseling skills, using that reflective listening, being humble and curious and focusing on what the family's strengths are. All those things go a very long way toward building that trust and that relationship that's needed for those helping or therapeutic conversations. Having said all that, as we speak to different people and do this work, we have to remember the role that culture plays, right? Now, when we talk about culture, it's very easy to make generalizations and assumptions. So please take this information as a starting point, not as oh, everyone from this area is this way. Make sure that you're approaching each family with curiosity and with openness, and they may surprise you in what they share. In general, you can see a picture of these beautiful mountains, and this is one of the first snows that we had in 2024. In general, the Appalachian culture is characterized by these rich folk traditions in music like bluegrass, in storytelling and food and crafts, along with a very strong emphasis on family and community. These things are tied to a very strong history of self-sufficiency in these mountains. These are people that are tough and they're strong. What does this look like in our emergency response? Well, for us in the mountains of Western North Carolina, when we ask people, so, is there anything you need? They'd be saying, oh, no, we're blessed. Our family's alive. Now, they may not have somewhere to lay their heads tonight, but they're blessed. Their family made it out, okay? Sometimes when we were trying to offer support, they're like, oh no, you need to give this to someone who needs it more than us. There's also a little bit of distrust of government and outsiders. So we had to earn our place in the community. And we did that by trying to be very respectful and careful wherever we went. And we're going to cover some of those nuances next session, actually. In terms of infant feeding practices, this area in Western North Carolina has the highest breastfeeding rates in our state. And there's also a very strong culture of informal milk sharing. Now, this picture comes from the North Carolina demography source from the 2020 census. And one of the things that we found very, very quickly is that we were serving a lot of Spanish speakers. But if you look at the demographics, Hispanics comprise only about 8 to 9% of the population of Buncombe County, which is where Asheville is, about 12% in Henderson County, which is the county right below it. However, we know that emergencies impact the communities that have highest needs. So we found that Hispanics were represented disproportionately in our distribution sites. Some of these sites had higher than 80% of Spanish-speaking participation, even those that were not targeted specific to Hispanic as an outreach. This became even more relevant after January 20th, when the new United States administration took over and started targeting this population for raids. So our sites became very protective of these people, of our people, and they came up with contingency plans, such as keeping doors locked, having an escape plan. It was really quite encouraging to see this community support for all the families, but especially for this most vulnerable population. We also found out there was about a 1% Russian-speaking population and some Ukrainian-speaking population. The important thing to remember here is that every family is unique, and we need to be very sensitive in all our encounters so that we are respectful. If you're curious, we can be respectful of how that family is structured, if they have an unconventional family structure. So always approach these families with curiosity. Let's take a moment to reflect now about your community. I want you to think about what cultural considerations are specific to where you work and where you live. Is there any specific thing that you need to make sure that you're thinking about? So go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Yes, many languages, multi-generational households. Yes. Islam, exactly. So you might have, different cultural groups, family dynamics. Okay. Dari, okay. Oh, yes, intense border control. Yeah, there's a lot of reluctance of people seeking for help if there's a lot of presence, governmental presence. Heavily formula dependent, Catholic, single moms. Yes, all these things, refugee populations. Yeah, if these highly matriarchal societies where breastfeeding is not the norm, that's a different take, right? Rural areas. Okay, low breastfeeding rates, all those things. Yes, a transient population, absolutely. LGBTQ people, right? And populations. Let's take a moment right here. We're going to do a live demo of what this sounds like. So I'm going to ask Rachel, who is one of our digital gurus, to go ahead and turn on her camera and unmute herself. And Rachel and I are going to do a little demonstration for you. All right. I can't hear you, Rachel.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Here.
All right. And it's actually not Rachel. It's Monica. And Monica, I'm visiting Monica and her family in their hotel room. So, hi, Monica. I'm Norma with the Safe Infant Feeding team. Are you mom to all these little ones?
Yeah, the two older boys are my sons, Josh and Nathan, and the baby here is my 2-week-old daughter, Gracie.
Oh, what a beautiful family. Tell me a little bit more about about Gracie?
Well, she was born during the storm, and when we were discharged from the hospital, we had no home to return to. So we've just been staying in this hotel room for the past 2 weeks.
Wow, that sounds really hard. So how have you been feeding the baby?
Well, Gracie is mostly breastfeeding, but she does get a bottle of formula at night when I'm trying to get the other two boys ready for bed. It's just easier.
Yeah, yeah. That's great that you've been breastfeeding. How has breastfeeding been going for you?
Well, it was hard for the first couple of days, but I think we've got the hang of it now. She does cry a lot in the evenings. I think she's got some colic, but I give her that bottle at night, and it seems to help. It puts her right to sleep. I really wanted to fully breastfeed, but gosh, honestly, we're just really trying hard to make things work right now.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing your very best to figure out how to deal with the older kids and a fussy baby in the evening. And it sounds like you're the only adult here right now. Tell me a little bit about the formula. What are you using?
Well, I got this bottle of ready to feed formula at the distribution center. It's great because it can last me a few days. With her only taking one bottle at night.
Okay, so it's that really big, like 32 ounce, I think that's what it says. Are
Yeah,
you
yeah, this one right here. I just keep it by the bed on my bedside table, and use it as I need it.
okay? Um, so you're keeping it at room temperature then?
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't refrigerated when I got it. Is that the problem with that?
Okay, yeah, these large containers, they actually, once you open them, you have to store them in the refrigerator in between uses. And ideally, I know you said you're only doing a bottle at night, so it's probably lasting you like 4, 5, 6 days. They really need to be used within about 48 hours.
Oh gosh. Well, the bottle's too big to fit in the fridge. We just have this little tiny, tiny hotel fridge, and I've got all my other food in there for me and the boys, and there's really no room for this big bottle. Is it gonna make my baby sick?
Well, it sounds like you're a really good parent and you're worried about your baby. Has the baby shown any signs of illness, any vomiting or fever or diarrhea?
Well, not really, not so far.
Well, that's great. That means your milk has probably been keeping your baby healthy, and that's fantastic. Perhaps we can get you some smaller containers, like just ones that you can just use one a day, when you're giving that formula, and then just toss it. Is that something you might be interested in doing?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't even know it came in smaller containers.
I know a lot of people don't know that. They do come in smaller containers, and they even come with like these little disposable nipples, so you don't have to worry about cleaning anything else up.
Oh, that would be great. It's been, really hard to like wash all of her bottles and stuff in the this little tiny and all of her dishes and everything just in this little tiny like hotel bathroom sink. I don't really have a good way to wash everything. So, yeah, like that would be really good.
It really sounds like you're doing the best you can with what you have, and you have you have such a these kids are so lucky to have you. You are doing the very best you can, and and not having help in the evenings to help manage this crew is a big hurdle for you.
Yeah, I really did want to fully breastfeed, but right now, just having that formula bottle at night gives me the time that I need to take care of my family. My sister offered to come stay with me and help out, but I mean, you see how crowded it is here. We just don't have the space. I'm hoping that maybe I can find an apartment soon, and she can come stay with us for a little bit and help out.
It sounds like you're already making a plan to go back to your original goal of fully breastfeeding, and that is awesome. This baby, Gracie, she is just so blessed to have you. Please keep up the great work. Let me get you the supplies you need, but you feel free to call us if you have any more questions, okay? Is there anything else you needed today?
I don't think so, not right now, but thank you so much. Once we get a little bit more settled, I might be in touch because I really do want to get back to fully breastfeeding again.
Thank you so much. Now you get to practice doing this. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our same breakout rooms. So what we're going to do is we're going to work in groups of 3. We're going to ask you to use the tools, right, to take about, to do some scenarios. If there's 3 people in your room, one of you is going to be the person presenting the scenario or the requester, the person that's asking for help or asking a question. The second person is going to be the helper, the person that's responding, right? And then the third person, if there's 3 people in your room, that person will act as the observer. Now, as the observer, your job is going to be really important. You're not going to participate in the conversation, but you'll take notes and you'll listen to the communication. What worked? What could have been better? And you also get to be the timekeeper. These interactions have to be short, 2 to 3 minutes max per person. And then we'll see what these observations, what observations you came up with, and we'll debrief some of those. You will have a total of 9 minutes to work through these 3 scenarios in a 1-minute countdown, hopefully. And then so, you know, when one person's finished, rotate the roles. So if you were the requester in the first scenario, you'll be the responder in the second and the observer in the third. So everyone has a chance to experience each perspective. Remember, the goal is to assess the need quickly, not necessarily to give people an answer, right? It's just to assess the needs quickly. There is a little button in your room that says ask for help. So if you need to ask for help, go ahead and ask for help, and one of our team members will join your room and assist you. If you're not able to join a room, or if you're listening to this on the replay, don't worry, you can still participate. You'll be writing down your questions that you want to ask and seeing if those questions allowed you to get to the heart of the need. Okay, the important thing right now is to make sure that you're curious and that the questions from the tools that we shared, you're using those to get to what does this family
I don't
really
hear
need?
anything, but I'm not in a room.
So these are the 2 tools, and these are the scenarios. There's a woman with 3 children, including a 6-month-old, a man picking up infant supplies at a distribution site, a grandparent looking for formula relief center, a parent with a 4-week-old asking about formula, an individual asking for formula on your social media page that you run, or a woman coming in asking for formula. This is what your scenarios are going to look like. We're going to give you a link in just a minute that's going to take you to this presentation. See where that red arrow is right there? That red arrow shows you how to navigate. There are 12 slides in this particular presentation. The first slide is just the first scenario. The second slide is more about that scenario. We're going to ask you to just kind of stay with the first one unless you're the person that's responding, and the person that's responding can look, kind of peek at what the full scenario is and start giving your helper like little ideas about, like, okay, what's really going on. Remember, this has to be really, really quick. And there's, like I said, there's 12. So there's 6 scenarios. The first slide will be just the initial presentation, and then the next one gives you more information. So choose who's going first, second, or third. And if you're in the same group that you were before, just the first person that introduced themselves goes first, second, third. If your breakout room number is odd, try to use scenarios 1 through 3. If it's even, use 4, 5, and 6. Or just do whatever you want. If you have questions, click I need help. So these are the scenarios. Now we're going to put that in the chat as well. Or if you have 2 devices, I know some of you are not able to access 2 devices. So we're going to put it in the chat. You can go ahead and open those scenarios. It's on a Canva document, and you can't break it because it's view only. You can only slide through it. It's in the chat, and when you go into the rooms, you'll be able to access those. For those of you who are not in a breakout room or who are watching this as a replay, you can still participate. Just remember, you're focusing on assessing those needs quickly. That's why it's called the Rapid Needs Assessment. I want you to go to that link on the Canva, which we'll probably put in the homework as well. Go to the first scenario. And before you slide through to find out more about that first scenario, write 3 questions that you might want to ask this particular person. And then advance it to the second slide. See if your questions would have gotten you closer to the answers that these families need. And see how many scenarios you can cover in 9 or 10 minutes. So that'll be for those people who are not able to necessarily join this live conversation, and you want to do it on your own. You only had time for one scenario. Yeah, we had to get really good at being like super quick, and that can be hard to do in these kinds of settings. Sometimes we were talking to families in a car line, like where cars were getting supplies, and we had to like really go quick. And so let us know in the chat if there was any like aha moments or any questions that remain on using any of these tools, like either the SAFE team rapid needs assessment or the CDC rapid needs assessment. Yeah, the impromptu discussions. Veronica, it takes practice. That's a great comment. Yeah,
it does. And myself and another one of our colleagues in the room, we're both IBCLCs, and so of course I started reading this like the SAFE assessment tool like an IBCLC, and I thought, am I supposed to know something in this scenario or not supposed to know this information? And so, I wanted to assess her baby's feeding because she said he's eating all the time and doesn't know that he's getting enough. So yeah, it's a little hard to put both worlds together so quickly.
Yes, and we ended up doing, I'm an IBCLC as well, so we ended up doing a lot of things that we normally don't do in our regular clinical practice, and that's part of this training, right? It's like, okay, how do you adapt what you know and help someone in a situation like this, right? Yeah, the self-discovery and awareness of strengths. Yeah, isn't it fun to kind of look for what's the strengths of these family? What are they doing right? Because a lot of times in an emergency situation, we're just seeing, oh my God, they have all these needs. Well, yes, they have all these needs, but they also have strengths. What are they doing right?
Yeah, Norma, I'd love for you to look at the or in the chat. It said it was difficult to try and encourage breastfeeding depending on the person's resources at home and access to certain items. So looking at breastfeeding and safe infant feeding through a different lens during emergencies, this is going to be helpful for this particular thought and question, Norma.
Yeah, and it is, yes, absolutely. It's very challenging, but we're going to give you lots of opportunities to keep practicing on your own. Okay, lots of opportunities. And we're going to talk about safe water. Yes. Thank you, Lourdes. We are going to talk. And next time, I'm going to cue it up for next time. Next time we'll get a chance to practice a scenario. We're going to talk, we're going to learn about safe water later today, but in the next 15 minutes. But we're also going to let you have a chance to practice those safe water things. Yes, the Destiny says, our group thought it was good to figure out if a family means literal goat's milk or goat's milk based formula when feeding a baby. That is a fantastic observation, Destiny, and whoever was in your group, because sometimes we hear things and we think we understand. Really asking those clarifying questions. Yeah, retrain the brain. You guys did great. Oh yeah, scenarios about donor milk. That's actually for session 4. So do not miss session 4. We're going to be talking about how do you mitigate risk with milk sharing, right? Because we found a lot of information on that. Yeah, Lourdes says, in Western North Carolina, my experience was there was no lack of specific formulas. In Puerto Rico, we had extreme scarcity and you had to settle for what there was, and that was hard. Yeah, it just depends on the setting, right? Or if your WIC state is ending, if WIC is shutting down. Yeah. All right. Well, you guys are amazing. So we're going to go into our next.
Wait, we have a raised hand, Norma. So Jareen,
yeah.
Do you want to real briefly unmute and ask your question?
Really quick, thank you so much, Norma. When you were doing your role play session, I was concerned that mom maybe was still not really clear that it was unsafe to continue to feed that big open bottle of water. And so, and in our scenario, and even in yours, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to find you these throwaway bottle tops, and I'm going to get you this ready to feed formula, when in fact that is not usually the case. And so right. I would like to have done a little bit.
Let me tell you what we did, because all these are based on real life scenarios. We took it with us. And we had all that stuff with us. So we took the formula, the unsafe formula with us. And we're going to talk more about mitigating risks next time. It's going to be Ashley and I talking to you about mitigating risks. And so we'll talk about how, just really disposing of those unsafe feeding supplies. There was so much unsafe things. Yeah. We could go on. The chat is rich. So thank you so much for everyone's thoughts on that. Melinda, go ahead.
Just super quick in the chat, type in, how would you describe in one word safe water? Clean, potable, non-toxic, hydrating, potable, clean, drinkable, free of toxins, uncontaminated. Yes. So we're getting the same kind of idea here. Really what we're looking for is water that can be we can drink it without getting sick. This picture here was actually taken in Asheville after they told us that water was safe. You could see that's not exactly what most of us would consider safe water. You could see that water can be a big deal, and this is what's coming out of the pipes. Everything changes when we've had a disaster scenario, when we've had resources get interrupted. All of those things will make water unsafe. So why do we want to focus on safe water? Unsafe water sanitation and hygiene, we call it WASH, is one of the biggest risks to health. We've got things that can be in the water. Yes, there's toxins too, but let's just talk specifically about the things that will give people an illness. Different types of bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and parasites. These are all the things that when we have a case where our clean water system has been compromised, whether that be by flooding, by damage to the infrastructure, any other type of a boil water advisory, sewage spills. We've had that here in the Charlotte area where I am, dumping, lead pipes, all sorts of things. We're going to have that contamination of the water. Who's at the highest risk? Children. People who have compromised immune systems. This is where the problem is and why we focused on this. WASH issues, again, that water and sanitation and hygiene, they cause about 400,000 deaths of children a year. Children under 5. This is mostly due to diarrhea and diseases that are gastrointestinal diseases. Infants are the most vulnerable. When it comes to people older than that, any compromised immune system. So all of this is going to be helpful for people with compromised immune systems as well. So a few aspects of terminology. When we clean things, this removes most of the germ and dirt. Usually we think of that with soap, water, friction. That's going to remove a lot of germs and dirt. Sanitizing, which may or may not be done after cleaning, is going to reduce germs and objects on the surfaces to levels considered safe. Ideally, we're going to do both that cleaning and sanitizing, and this is going to get us often to the level of disinfecting. Disinfecting can also be its own step. Okay. People with sick or weakened immune systems usually need that additional step of sanitizing. What are we not talking about? We're not talking about sterilizing. Sterilizing means removing 100% of germs, pathogens. It requires special equipment. We don't have that. We don't have autoclaves, heat treatments, any of that kind of thing. This is sanitizing that we're talking about. So what are the steps? Really briefly, the overview of the steps is going to be that if you have unsafe water, this could be stream water, it could be water that's coming out of the tap after an emergency, it could be many different sources of water. If it's at all cloudy, the first thing you need to do is filter it. Then we're going to want to make sure we reduce the pathogens, and that is going to give us potable or drinkable water. The term potable, or sometimes people will call it potable, means that water is safe to drink. Filtering sediment or cloudy water, you use whatever you have around. When you're talking about a disaster area, a low resource setting, things like paper towel or coffee filter, those are great. Sometimes it's going to be a clean t-shirt, something that we know is clean. It's not going to add contaminants to the water, and it's going to help filter out that sediment. When it comes to actually making the water safe and removing those bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens, there are a few different ways we can do that. All right. One is using filters. Part of why filters is the least reliable is because it's very tricky to have filters that will actually kill a lot of those pathogens. The other thing that's a little bit tricky about it is filters are really variable. There are some filters that are great at removing parasites but don't remove bacteria and viruses. There are some that are great at doing most of it. Life Straw, some of those other kinds of things, again, not endorsing anything. These are just products we commonly encountered. You have to be very specific about following the instructions. You have to know what it is you're getting. Realistically, for our purposes, the filters are not going to be safe enough for what we want. We can do a chemical disinfection, or we can boil. And the most safe source of water in a low resource setting is going to be bottled water because it's already gone through everything it needs to be safe before that. But bottled water can be sometimes hard to come by, in these situations. So, all of these methods, filtering, bleaching, boiling, do not remove everything. They remove bacteria, viruses, and parasites or pathogens, yes. It can't remove harmful chemicals, automotive oil, medications that have been dissolved in the water, and things like that. So this is part of why, even with these steps, going ahead and pulling water out of a stream or a creek bed where things had been flooded is still not going to be safe. It's still not going to be a good idea. And did we find people doing that in Western North Carolina? We absolutely did. Obviously, we did not encounter this, but we wanted to add it real briefly because you never know. As far as radiation goes, anything that was sealed or indoors at the time of the radiation exposure event is considered safe. Anything that was opened or exposed is considered unsafe, and that includes tap water. Bleaching or boiling radiated water will not make it safe to drink. But washing and cleaning with tap water, not drinking it, but with radiation exposed tap water would still be considered safe. That's from the CDC. So, when we're talking about removing those pathogens, boiling water is going to be the best way to make it drinkable. That's going to be the safest. You will have in your homework a handout that includes all of these timings on things, measurements, all of that. So you don't have to worry about taking crazy notes with all of this right now. But to make it drinkable, bring water to a rolling boil for a minute, unless you're above 6,500 feet, in which case you want it to be 3 minutes. Let it cool, store it. Cool, nice and easy. What if you don't have any power or energy or way to boil the water? You can go ahead and use bleach. Because of the convenience of bleach and not needing to use energy and a huge pot and all of that, this is what we wound up using most of the time. With all of these, of course, you want to start with clear filtered water. You need to use specific kinds of bleach that don't have additives in it. About 8 drops per gallon if it's a 5 to 9% sodium hypochlorite. Let it stand 30 minutes. That's super important. And then store it in a clean, sanitized container. Again, a chart like this is going to be in your handouts, so you don't need to worry about figuring it out. The reason we bring this up is because understand the difference in concentration means a difference in how much you need to use of the bleach in order to make the water safe to drink. This is a very important idea. Filtration, as I mentioned, there's lots of different kinds. UV treatment might be included, might not be. If you plan to use something like that, look at the manufacturer instructions, do your homework, learn about it. Personally, we felt that the complexities of using filters made it too hard for the mass education efforts that we were using. So with feeding supplies, once you've got that water drinkable, we need to use do something with it in order to make sure that those feeding supplies are safe. All feeding items need to be cleaned after use. Cleaning, we're talking about getting rid of the yuck and the gunk and the formula and milk residue. You need to use safe water. You don't want to use water that's considered problematic. So after you've done one of those previous processes, that water can be used to clean feeding supplies. If things have been touched by floodwater, especially stuff like pacifiers, bottle nipples, things like that, they might be contaminated in a way that cannot be cleaned. So those are best to discard. Does that mean all families are going to discard them? Does that mean all families are going to discard disposable items? No, they're not. And that's one of those things that we need to try to work with and help families with. Cleaning feeding items, I think everybody pretty much knows how to clean things. We just need to make sure people are aware that there's an extra step that has to happen of making sure that you're using clean containers, that those containers are not used for anything else. Using a dedicated scrub brush. This isn't like during our normal life where we can go ahead and put these items into the dishwasher, they're going to pretty much be sanitized and we're fine. There's different steps and issues. So this, after cleaning items, there's a sanitizing step that we encouraged everyone to do when they were in the hurricane impacted zone. Strictly speaking, it's only really necessary for infants under 2 months old or those who are sick or otherwise immune compromised. But realistically, when we're talking about a low resource setting, when we're talking about a time that the water itself is unsafe, it's a really good idea to do this sanitizing step at least once a day, because that is going to help get rid of and mitigate the risk of all of the extra exposure that we have going on. So bleach method, prepare bleach solution, 2 liters or 8 cups of water with 5 milliliters or a teaspoon of bleach, depends on which measurements you like to use. Submerge the items. These should already be clean. We're just doing the sanitizing step here. Submerged in that bleach solution, wait at least 2 minutes. And then air dry in a mesh bag is ideal. If not, the bin that you used for submerging the items can also be used to let everything air dry. And then store it in that container. Boiling method, similar. Put things in a pot, fill it with, it says safe water. Realistically, you can go ahead and use water that's not safe. Boil it for that minute first, then add the items, and then boil for an additional 5 minutes. If you're boiling with adding this unsafe water and you've got the items in there, it's better to use it longer, or boil it a little bit longer, because the bacteria that might be in the unsafe water could be getting into cracks and crevices. Things to remember: water needs to be clear when you're sanitizing feeding items. If for some reason the water still is cloudy or has sediment, you need more time to be effective. So just make it clear and filter it out first. You can, like I just mentioned, combine the sanitizing and potable water step if you want to. Better not to, but you can. You have to use additional bleach. You can't just take the sanitizing level and use that for making water safe. That's my understanding. Filtered water cannot be used to sanitize feeding items. You have to use either the bleach or boiling method. You can't just filter water because it's not going to do that. So using bleach. Now, I will admit, when I first went into the hurricane response zone and I heard that we were using bleach, I was like, wait, we're doing what? Because I'm one of those more natural kind of people. I didn't want any chemical exposures. Realistically, it is a safe thing to use within the parameters of making sure, straight undiluted bleach, no, it can cause burns, caustic, whatever. But the chlorine, the very thing that is what makes concentrated bleach a challenge and potentially dangerous to handle, is also what causes it to make water safe to drink. The chlorine is that active ingredient. Those measurements of how much you need to use change with the different concentrations. We want to make sure that we don't have additives. Splashless, low splash, bad. Fragrance, bad. Dye, fortunately, we didn't see a lot of that. Fabric protectant is a tricky one, that we had to watch out for. You want to be careful with very low concentration. We're actually going to do a quick exercise here to work with these. If it says things that are regular qualities of bleach, it disinfects, it's regular, it cleans, it sanitizes, it whitens, it brightens, removes odors. Those are all things that bleach naturally does. Those you don't have to worry about. We're worrying about those additives. So there are multiple questions in here. Take a minute, go ahead and answer those questions I'm going to give everybody about 2 or 3 minutes. We're running pretty behind. So we'll do what we can with that. Answer as many questions as you can. We will very quickly go through the answers after everyone's had a chance to respond. So to answer one of the questions that came into the chat, liquid bleach also has a shelf life. Yes, that is one of those things that we are going to address really quickly. And bleach tablets, we didn't wind up using that, but it is indeed a good option that we're going to address briefly as well. So we're going to go ahead real quickly and go through these. So first question, you guys will remember, what additives does this bleach have? It was fragrance. That looked like pretty much everybody got that correct. You could see circled where, it gives us those indicators that there is fragrance in that one. Here's a couple of other examples of ways that you can tell that bleach has fragrance in it. Trust me, when we get to evaluating, donation items and things like that, at least one person on your team needs to really know how to identify these things so you can teach everybody else. Because there are so many things that will come in, regardless of what you ask for, that are not usable. Okay, so what additives does this bleach have? No or low splash. Hopefully everyone could see where that is. It's usually pretty obvious on the no or low splash varieties. Here are, again, some other varieties of that. Most of the time it will say specifically splash free, easy pour, no splash, low splash. You may also see things like that percentage of sodium hypochlorite is a lot lower. So that's another thing that you can watch for. Okay, so with this one is a fabric protectant. This one's a lot trickier. A lot of people miss this one. It's one of the trickiest things because it's that seal that you're looking for. The one that is here down in the lower left that says with fabric protection, that's one of the ways you could see it. Honestly, I love it when it has that because that's easy. Other times, you might just see something like this, where it says cleans and protects fabrics. If it says it protects fabrics, it has a fabric protectant in there and we can't use it because it adds a polymer that coats things. It can cause extra foaming. There's reasons why we don't want that fabric protectant in the bleach. Okay, so with this one, could this make drinkable water? And the answer is no. It is an oxygen bleach. It's chlorine free. Chlorine is our active ingredient. I am not aware of guidelines for using an oxygen bleach or something like that to be able to disinfect the pathogens that we're looking to get rid of in unsafe water. So I put that one in because, hey, it's supposed to be safer, right? Not in this case. With this one, most people didn't have the chance to get to this one, but if you look at it real quick, you can see this one also has a fabric protectant. It's a tricky one where it says protects and keeps fabric white. It's that protects word that we're looking for. And our last one here, which a lot of people didn't have the opportunity to get to, could this make drinkable water? And the answer for this one is no, because this is actually not bleach. It's a cleaner with bleach. Now, is that amount, the sodium hypochlorite being 1.8% problematic? Not necessarily. If it were just water plus that amount of bleach, well, we just then use a different dilution. But with this being something that is just a matter of, since it's cleaner with bleach, there's a whole lot of other additives in there that are problematic. So what we found is we had just a couple of bleaches that we found were safe. Really in the size that we were looking for. We didn't want big gallon sizes. There are probably more types of bleach that are safe in that size. These are the only two that wound up fitting in our sanitation kits with the bin size that we used. This is not meant to be an endorsement. However, it is what we found, We found that just this color, just the teal chlorine, personally, it was my favorite because it had only water, sodium hypochlorite, and sodium hydroxide in it, nothing else. The foil seal on it really helped reduce leakage and off-gassing, which made it so much easier to maintain it for the amount of time that we needed. This regular Clorox, it does have this Chloromax stuff, which is not great, but after doing a bunch of research, we found that it's approved, considered to be okay, it's safe. This was heavy. We did have a lot of problem with off-gassing on this one, and having the containers lie on their side increased the issue. So we wound up dealing with that in a way that I will talk about in another session. As was raised in the chat, bleach can be a real challenge, actually. It can be challenging to source it in an emergency. There are, of course, the issues of, yes, bleach is caustic. People have to be careful with it. Storage is a problem. Yes, the active ingredient degrades. My understanding is that it degrades about 10% a year, beginning 12 months-ish, 12 to 18 months after manufacture. So that effectiveness is going to decline over time. So you do have to watch expiration dates. You have to look at it. If there's not expiration dates, which sometimes there's not, they only put manufacturing dates, you have to be aware if it's been a certain amount of time, you probably need to tell people different measurements to use. Doesn't mean it's going to not work at all, but you have to use a different amount in order to be effective. We did find that bleach was really in high demand, and if we left those kits unattended, the bleach would go missing. So bleach alternatives, this is generally things like bleach tablets, water purification tablets. They tend to be more shelf stable. They're easier to transport, easier to store because they tend to be just, a little bit of space. People do have to have water to mix it with. And it does require a little bit more education because a lot of people are not familiar with it. They don't know what to do with those things. So it's just a different type of education. We did not wind up using them during Helene, but there are a lot of emergency preparedness crews that prefer water purification tablets for all of these benefits. Bleach tablets, chlorine tablets, iodine tablets, there's a lot of different alternatives. There is a bit of a discussion linked from your homework to enable you to start exploring this and learning about it because it is a helpful thing. To help you with that, make sure that you know what you're trying to do because there are so many different kinds of products. You have to know, are you just trying to purify water, or you also want people to be able to sanitize feeding items? Not all of the water purification tablets also work for sanitizing. So you have to make sure you look at that. Look for approved products and note that shelf life. Because realistically, if the shelf life is only 3 years, you might just be better off with that bleach. But evaluating those pros and cons is going to be really important. So, super quick, we had used sanitation kits. This is more or less the final version of what we used. You are going to get a link in your homework, a document in your homework that basically tells you this so you can compile your own sanitation kit. In a later session, we're going to do a deep dive on the sanitation kits so that you can decide not just how to replicate ours, but you can decide what it is that you want to put in. Are there different things, additional things you want to leave out? So we went with a shoebox size plastic bin, bleach, as we mentioned, dish soap, a small enough size to fit in the bin, a baby bottle brush with nipple cleaner, some disposable cups, a syringe for measuring the bleach, and instructions. I know we're not giving you all the info right now, but it does take a long time. Lastly, before we get to homework and questions, I want to remind everybody that this is not all about the kits. Doing disaster response, supporting safe infant feeding after an emergency is not just, hey, here's a sanitation kit, go on your way. There are lots and lots of things that we can offer as support. Safe water education, helping people figure out whether or not they have problems with their water. We could connect them with other resources, help them find pumps and supplies. Unlike non-disaster response times, a lot of supplies that we usually wouldn't be able to locate for free are available at no cost when you're in a disaster. Formula feeding, education, direct lactation feeding support if you or your volunteers are qualified, baby carrying support, again, if people are qualified to give that instruction, and emotional support. And yes, those sanitation kits, but they're the bottom of a long list. I want to say some thanks to the organizations that have made this possible. The Marcia Brady Tucker Foundation, they have, as I said, they're the main source of funding for this program, and we are deeply grateful for them and being able to make this happen. One of our major sponsors has been Breastfeeding Family-Friendly Communities. And just a quick little bit about them. Breastfeeding Family-Friendly Communities provides technical assistance to breastfeeding coalitions and health departments across the U.S., including Breastfeed Durham, Breastfeeding Family-Friendly Communities of Asheville, and the North Carolina Breastfeeding Coalition. Our newest project, the SAFE team, revealed national gaps in infant and young child feeding during emergencies. Our core mission of systems change uses the 10 steps to a breastfeeding family-friendly community to train and educate non-lactating community members to better welcome families, normalize breastfeeding, and prepare for safe infant feeding in emergencies. Together, we build environments where every family can thrive. And we're deeply grateful to the breastfeeding family-friendly communities. We have also Confident Pregnancy and Birthstone. And briefly, Confident Pregnancy helps people be healthier, feel more confident, and find their inner strength so we can show up as our best selves. Learn foundations for staying calmer and more resilient under stress in our upcoming program, Surfing Emotional Currents. Register free at confidentpregnancy.com/SEC. And for Birthstone, the Birthstone Center for Appalachian Perinatal Resilience strengthens perinatal health in Western North Carolina by centering families, uplifting birth workers, and advancing equitable access to lactation, doula, and maternal mental health support, building resilience in mountain communities before, during, and after birth. Starting as a small private practice, Birthstone has grown into a regional nonprofit that creates innovative solutions to providing a village for mountain families. Again, we are grateful to all of our sponsors. We do still have availability for additional sponsors. And so if you know anyone who might be interested in that, please reach out to us. I do want to briefly introduce the homework. So first, we want everyone to assemble your own sanitation kit. This can be one where you actually have all of the real ingredients, including a bottle of bleach, or you can do it as a mock kit where you use some other bottle and just like put a label on it that says bleach so that you can simulate water purification and sanitation activities. We will use this next session. There is another online learning module. This one is about feeding basics that you can take some time to do on your own. Practice cleaning and sanitizing feeding items when only unsafe water is available. So being able to explain this process to people quickly is going to be easier if you've actually gone through the steps yourself. And if you would, please complete the evaluation for this session. So in the handouts, in that homework document as well, you'll have those do-it-yourself instructions for making a sanitation kit, you're going to have a link to the safe infant feeding handout booklet that we used in Hurricane Helene response area, some notes and comments about bleach alternatives, and references. So please, if you can, do the evaluation at sometime between now and the next session. If you can complete your evaluation, we do read it, we do try to take those things into consideration, and we're trying constantly to improve this. And yes, as we mentioned, we're going to talk about different types of bottle brushes. When we go into a deep dive on the sanitation kits, we will talk about all of those things. So briefly in the chat, go ahead and answer this question after today's presentation. I hope that probably one of those is going to be that we don't have a tech issue next time. That's mine for this. Yes, if you are open to supporting this work, please help us reach more people with this. And now for anybody who is able to remain for a few more minutes, we will take some questions. Lots of discussion on other types of things that people can use for cold sterilization, cold sanitation. Many people do have bleach, but most people, the bleach they have at home it has a lot of additives, so that is something to watch. We'll dive into things like bottle brushes and such in that sanitation kit deep dive session. Does the bleach smell go away with the recommended sanitation ratio? Pretty much. It will mostly go away, but you know how water sometimes tastes a little bit chlorine-y? You know, there's the potential for that taste. Okay, yes, I also hope that people will rarely need to use these skills.
Yeah, it's the hottest October in the recorded history, so hoping is nice. Hoping is very nice.
Hoping is nice, but yes. And for all of those who are concerned about the ability to do the rapid needs assessment, we're going to give you multiple opportunities to practice, partly through homework, partly through, things we do in other sessions, but we want you to feel comfortable with that skill as well.
Also, we had a question come across that asked if you could share our information about our kits with your local coalitions, and we are happy for you to do that on our website. We have all that information, and so we would love for you to use that website, use those tools on the website, use the research on that website to talk about kits, start informing your coalitions of that, and we would love, if you need help with that, we are happy to reach out. That is something we do. We'll cover it in the future training sessions, but that's something we also do. We collaborate with other coalitions across the nation to do simple things like that, just kit building or kit information, or how do we connect with our local organizations and preparedness, and that will be things that we cover, but we're happy for you to use our resources on our website.
Absolutely. And to answer the question about did we discuss hand washing before and after sanitizing, it's printed in the steps in the graphic, visual representation of the steps, where it says that yes, you want to make sure you're hand washing before, sanitizing. We didn't discuss it here because we were going through things quickly, but absolutely that is something that we want to make sure that caregivers are doing before working with sanitizing, before they're handling things to give to their babies. That is actually one of the challenges with using bottled water, is people think, oh, the bottled water is clean, but their hands aren't clean when they're touching the bottled water. And then they might do things, especially in formula preparation, where they're taking that bottle, the outside is dirty, they're using that to mix the formula, they're taking that dirty hand, scooping out the formula. So these are all things to take into consideration. That's part of why getting the information about what the person you're actually talking to needs is so important, because we can't give somebody everything, but we can give them the targeted amount of information that they need for their situation. Thank you, everybody who's stayed late. I appreciate it.